Hi, this is Dan Watanabe, and welcome to our premiere episode as part of my overall Sensei Dan series of backward engineering your script and project in the age of a changing Hollywood. Now, I know that I have done several of these episodes in the past in older videos, but given all of the changes that are occurring in Hollywood right now, I think it is time for us to kind of reset and look at what the opportunities are for the future and how you may best engineer your career around those options. Now, I'm going to focus primarily on screenwriting because I was a development executive. So during the time I was doing that, and I ended as a vice president of development at the company now known as Fremantle Media. You might recognize them for America's Got Talent, American Idol, and Price is Right and Family Feud, and the show that I worked on for a number of years called Baywatch. Please do not let the fact that I worked on Baywatch stop you. In fact, one of the main reasons I feel that I'm one of the people who can tell you the truth about Hollywood is because I worked on a very, very successful show that was very vernacular. And it is vernacular types of programming, whether it be feature film, traditional network television, basic cable, and of course, streaming, that I think I can give you a guidepost for how the industry changes and how you can best prepare yourself for those changes as they come down the pike. Now, I have been in the entertainment industry since 1986, so almost 40 years. And during that time, I have had the opportunity to work in a wide variety of areas, ranging from development, market research, distribution, and as a consultant in the development process for independent low budget companies that usually specialize in genre oriented materials. So if this is not your bailiwick, if all you want to do is write AAA type projects, that's fine. But what I'm gearing for is for the people that I've been teaching for the past 20 years, who usually come from community colleges, CSUs, and private universities. And they're the ones who are entering our workforce. And I have seen many successes amongst my former students. So what I'm trying to do is give you a roadmap to where you, as someone who's coming in as a creative, can best maximize that most important component of anything that you write, hope to produce, hope to direct, hope to shoot, hope to do the sound for, hope to edit, or hope to be in business affairs for. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to say that the entertainment industry is always in a place of crisis. And one of the best ways you can tell if opportunities are going to be coming down the line is if all you hear is everyone that you know who's in the entertainment industry saying it's worse than it's ever been. Now, I have been through 4 cycles of it's worse than it's ever been. And every one of those cycles has been followed by a renaissance, perhaps not in the area anyone anticipated that it would come in, but a renaissance nonetheless. And within all of that, there is opportunity, particularly for people who are just trying to get in. I hate to say this, but, and it sounds counterintuitive, when the industry is doing its most success, when it looks like absolutely everything is succeeding and nothing is failing, the job opportunities generally come from below the line. And what do I mean by below the line? These are the crafts, the cinematographers, the sound people, the grips, the art directors, and the scenics, and post-production, either in editorial or in delivery, which is the process of getting things distributed to all the places they're going to go. So that's where those jobs will be in a robust economy because there's so much going on. Contrarily, when things are going bad, that's when the opportunities arise in the above the line, the creative portion, such as writers, directors, actors, and producers. Now, why would that be? Well, first of all, the above the line positions are among the most competitive. They are also the jobs that are the most difficult to get. So, what happens when the industry is doing extraordinarily well? Those particular jobs go to friends. I hate to put it that way, but there's a reason why you talk about Nepo babies, or you talk about Wall Street bros, or you talk about all of that mishigas. It's because there's so much money being made that there's no financial consequence to not focusing on the most important element of any movie or TV series that you make that you hope will be a success. And that is when people are watching your program, they are buying emotions. And they might be buying emotions that are heart racing. For example, in a lot of tentpole movies where you have big special effects sequences, that's an emotion. You also have emotions that come from liking a group of characters so much you invite them into your house every week, such as with a sitcom, such as with a light mystery drama, such as with a more serious type drama, but you're inviting them into your house. Or how about you want to have a cathartic moment? You want to have a moment where, in spite of the fact that your own life might be having problems, that you can watch a movie that either makes you laugh or cry. Think about during the Great Depression, you had this incredible combination of social problem movies and goofball musicals, as well as screwball comedies. So everyone was being served. Now, what does this mean in terms of the hiring? When things get tough, then all of those jobs in the above the line world where you were able to hire your friends and your relatives and your acquaintances and make hires based on the politics, the benefit you get long term from hiring someone's kid, short term, or hiring someone's friend, or hiring someone's classmate who might not be really 100% qualified for the job. When things get tough, that closes down. And every dollar you spend must be spent well. So that means you have to look for the better content. So what I'm trying to do here is to help you be the person who's going to be the person who delivers that fire in the bottle, that person who understands what the market needs, not what it says it wants, but what it needs. And that you understand how to find those resources within yourself. As much as you feel like you'd be nervous as heck going to a development meeting, you have perfectionist energy, so nothing is ever good enough. We're going to try to stop you from doing that. We're going to try to make this business understandable for you to figure where you could potentially fit. Because a lot of times, as you're trying to figure out how you can get in to where you want to be, you end up being discovered to do what you were supposed to be. And it might not be the same thing. So please be flexible. As Shonda Rhimes was famous for saying, be in your year of yes. What did she mean by a year of yes? The year of yes means that you just don't say no unless something is offensive to you morally or you really, really don't feel comfortable. But outside of that, feel free to be in your year of yes and say, at least I'll think about it, because you never know when a door will miraculously open and you will be ready for it, just because you happen to be at the right place at the right time. You might have gone in for a completely different reason, and then all of a sudden you mention some little detail, some little piece of your knowledge, which you don't think is valuable. Because I'm going to be brutal here too. How many of us decided to get into entertainment because we have good senses of self, that we feel very confident. There might be some, but most of the time, those of us who had to do entertainment, not because our folks did it, not because our friends did it, but because we were driven to it, yeah, sometimes we don't know where we were meant to be. I thought I was going to be a screenwriter. And I realized when I was at USC that I didn't have talent for that. And you might be saying, Dan, why are you the one talking to us about screenwriting? Because I was the person on the other side of the desk. Because I never felt that I could do what we're asking the writers to do, as well as the individual writers could do, that I wasn't going to put my ego in front of their talent. So the job as a development person was to try to make people or help people write the best script possible using their internal collection of strengths. So let's start at the very beginning. And this is very basic. The first thing you should think about is not your dream project, not what you want to do, but what kind of a creative talent are you? And we're going to spend some time going into a little bit of detail of the advantages and disadvantages of all of the different types of creatives you could possibly be. The first thing I want to talk about is how you can determine what type of a writer or creator, because this works across all disciplines, that you are most comfortable being. And there's a number of ways that I do it when I'm talking to my students. The number one way is I will ask students, get up and talk, tell us about yourself, tell us why you want to do this and all of that. And then I'll throw them a little bit of an odd question. My favorite one to ask is, what's your favorite movie, TV show, series, social media channel, independent content creator, or song that you are embarrassed to admit you love as much as you do? And then tell me why. Because I found that when you're dealing with people who want to be creatives, a lot of time they'll say, well, I love Citizen Kane, or I just can't get enough of Persona, or you know what, we have all loved each other so much is my favorite Italian movie. They'll never dare say, no, my favorite movie is this TV movie called One of My Wives is Missing. No, they'll never say that. That happens to be one of mine, by the way. And without knowing that, it becomes difficult to really see where the person's core is, because a lot of times the movie or TV show or whatever it is they choose is something that has inspired them. Now, I know if you're going to say a TikTok channel or something, that's very recent, but it doesn't matter, because it's still giving me as a development exec on the other side of the desk a sense of who it is that you are. Now, another trick that I do is it's a variation of that first one. And I say, name 3 movies or TV shows or whatever that pop into your head right now. Don't think about it, just say it. And then you listen to the titles that they give, and then you break it down and say, okay, 2 of these will share a common element. One of them will be an outsider. Now, we all know that one of the myths or the sayings about creatives and what Hollywood wants, they say Hollywood wants something that's the same but different. Well, the same, which is your base talent, are the 2 movies, TV shows, or whatever that fall within the same category. The third, the outlier, is what your secondary talent is. And by putting that together, you can kind of figure out what kind of writer that person will be. And from that, I can usually figure out their home genre. And it doesn't matter what they were coming in to pitch me, by the way, because I would do horrible things when someone would come in to pitch me. I would take their paper, their treatment paper, or in today's parlance, their pitch deck. And I say, just tell me your story. And I'd have them tell it to me. And I'd say, I'm going to interrupt you. And then I would ask questions in the middle of it. And those questions in the middle of it are where I'm trying to figure out why they really wrote it. Because too many times someone's going to try to write something that they feel is commercial, but they don't really feel it. They don't really love it. But there's an element in it that's driving them forward. And if you can find what that element is, you can then back it into either the project they're talking to you about or the project they really meant to write. So there's a whole host of ways of doing this, and other people have other ways. There's no right or wrong on anything within the industry. It is what it is. And your talent is what it is. And it's best for you to embrace that. Now, does that mean you don't listen to criticism? Absolutely not. Does this mean that you are an egomaniac and you insist on doing it all your way? Absolutely not. I mean, some people do, but then they're called unemployed. So the best way to be is to be delightful. And in the process of being delightful, if you're talking about something that really lights you up, you're gonna be delightful. So there are three different types of creative. Now, there's all sorts of other things around this, but when I was development, we would always be talking amongst each other. We would also be talking with agents and managers. And a lot of times they would use very specific descriptions of the writers. Now, this was something that I'd never learned in school. And in the 20 years I've taught, I don't hear it an awful lot. I mean, I've sat in on other people's writing classes. I don't interfere, but I observe. And that is that, especially in the Los Angeles and Hollywood industry of today, there seems to be this idea that there's a correct way to write, there's a correct way to tell a story, and then there's a wrong way. Well, I happen to have gone to an international school for my high school in Tokyo. And yeah, I'm Japanese. I can't speak Japanese very well right now. I mean, you give me a couple glasses of sake, I'm fine. But it's been 40 years. But in the process of having lived in another country, seeing their vernacular programming, and especially through television and the other types of movies that they were doing, the kind that don't get released in the United States, I understood that what we say is the correct method in the West isn't so in the Far East. So if you feel that you're really an outsider, we can talk about why other styles are every bit as valid. Remember when RRR came out? Why do you think it did so well? RRR did what it did because it brought the vernacular of Indian movies to Netflix during a time when a lot of American product, which is very hegemonic worldwide, had become very ossified in its creativity. There wasn't any native surprise. Same with Parasite. All of these foreign films that happened to catch fire with the American public did so because they were filling a want in the viewers. So the three types of writers that we would talk about are people who are story oriented. That means that you have Western style, three-part dramatic structure as almost your birthright. You feel it. You understand how to build a story with building blocks, doing things like coming up with outlines and treatments and step outlines and doing note cards and doing revisions and knowing where your plot points fall. understanding the schemas of how storytelling is supposed to be is second nature to you. And yes, that's very important. And in fact, most workshops, most books, whether it be Sid Field's The Screenplay from the 1980s, or David Trottier book, which happens to be my favorite of all of the traditional screenwriting books, or Save the Cat. They all focus on that kind of three-part dramatic structure with a very, very solid story that builds a certain way. And you might think, well, what else is there? The other type of creativity is a character-oriented one. And where the challenge comes, especially for students who are learning about screenwriting for the first time, if you are a character-oriented writer, you might be able to do all of the three-part dramatic structure, exercises, treatment, step outline, whatever. But you're prone to writer's block. And you're actually prone, and remember, I'm being very general here. You're very prone to feeling you're insane. Why? Because you'll be writing a scene for your main character. And you know, they're supposed to do a certain thing. They have an inciting incident, then they have a conflict that arises from that, and then that leads to the first plot point. And you're trying to write it, and all of a sudden, somewhere in the back of your mind, your character says, I wouldn't say that. And you turn to your character and say, what are you talking about? I created you. You are my creation. And the character says, I don't care. I wouldn't do that. And you might say, you don't understand. I have a deadline coming up. Characters goes, do whatever you need to, but if you're going to try to write pages on this, I ain't going to help you. And you're going, all right, this is going to be a good session with my shrinker. Why is my character refusing to listen to me when I created them? Guess what? If you're a character-oriented writer, you'll just give it up. And you'll say, okay, what would you do? They'll tell you what they're willing to do. And again, you're talking to yourself. And you go, that doesn't fit my story. And the character will say, I don't care. And next thing you know, you will have come up with a better story, all about just this character and how unusual they are. You might say, but damn, that sounds like an art film. Could be. Could also be Hidden Figures. Could also be, going back in time a little bit, Trip to Bountiful, Kiss of the Spider Woman. Movies that look like, why was this a success? And yet they were. Because they followed what the character would do. Third type of project is scene-oriented. And what's a scene-oriented project? This is going to sound absolutely horrifying. It's a story that's neither, or it's a movie or TV show that is neither strong in story or character, but it has great scenes. Now, before you think, oh my God, who would do that? Can we say virtually every film in the Marvel and the DC universes, and even the Star Wars films, for whatever that's worth, is that they are very scene-oriented. Not only that, but some of our greatest directors were extraordinarily scene-oriented. Look at Fritz Lang. You look at his Dr. Mabuse movies, either the silent or the early talkie, like Testament of Dr. Mabuse, and in it, very scene-oriented, also very strong in character. Also, the story's not bad, but it's really memorable for its individual bits. You look at it and you go, oh my God, I am seeing early comic books. I am seeing film noir. I'm seeing social realism pictures. And I am seeing all of Alfred Hitchcock embedded in this guy's films from the early 30s. And before that, many of his movies from the 20s. You look at a lot of the Steven Spielberg and George Lucas movies, especially Indiana Jones, all Fritz Lang stuff, or the people who were inspired by Lang. Alfred Hitchcock movies, notoriously scene oriented. Yeah, they have interesting characters, they have interesting plots, but if you think about it, the plots are kind of like clothes hangers for the individual scenes. And from that, it backward engineered into the rest. Whole genres, horror movies. What happens with a horror movie if your story is too good? It becomes predictable, doesn't it? And you'll notice when people talk about truly great horror movies, they usually mention less than 10. I'm going to say they really mention about 5. And of those 5, you'll have something like Psycho, you'll have something like Rosemary's Baby, you'll have something like The Exorcist, you'll have something like Alien, but it's a very limited number. And those are the ones that kind of do all 3. But if you look at most horror movies, especially the really culty ones, they're usually fantastic scenes that are surrounded by kind of junky stuff, but that makes them lovable. In future episodes, I will go over in more detail what are some examples of each of these genres, what are the books that you can use as references, what documentaries might be helpful, and most importantly, what are some of the films that you should see if you decide to pursue this career? And yes, I'm going to say that a lot of times it's really important to see the past, because even if something is horribly dated, it was a success for some reason, and that reason might cycle around again. And if so, you will have the vocabulary in your head to explain why this is relevant. And from there, that's where you'll have your little something extra. You'll have your little diamond that makes you different from everyone else. And once people see it in you, not saying you're going to be putting your down payment for the house in Bel Air, I'm saying that you will probably find a great deal of career satisfaction. So that's my goal for all of you.